You get one crack at this, you get 4,000 weeks, you get one go. So if you're slaving away as a hamster on a wheel in whatever job you're doing, whether you're in your own business or in somebody else's business, and you don't love it, you've chosen to be there.
Welcome to the Radical Discernment Podcast, where we are exploring higher standards for a heartful life. I'm here today with Jimmy Burroughes. He is a leadership expert, a speaker, and author of 2 books, Beat Burnout and Escape the Multitasking Trap. Welcome, Jimmy. So nice to have you.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here, to be honest.
Super cool. I know I was so happy after we had our coffee there. I knew that there would be something coming. And I love your story of former military officer turned corporate high flyer and your mission to create a global ripple effect building high performance leaders who thrive without burning out. Yes, this is so important these days. I imagine you are a busy man.
I am grateful for the opportunities I've had to get involved with helping people and stop them going through what I went, which I'm sure we'll talk about later. But yeah, it's I feel very privileged to have this life.
Oh, yeah, it's beautiful. And it's really cool to see that you put that right at the forefront. And I think that really shows in the work that you're doing.
No, thank you. It's I feel very lucky to be doing it.
Well, that's actually a great segue into our very first question. What is your favorite thing about yourself?
Favorite? I saw this question and I really struggled. I think one of the things that I have learned about myself as I've gone on through my career is that I have some elements of neurodiversity. And one of those is that I think a little bit differently to a lot of people. And that obviously has some challenges when it comes to connecting and communicating with some people. But it has so many more strengths because I can think in ways that other people might think, or think in ways that other people don't think. So I can not only compliment, but I can also challenge with new perspectives. And I have been blessed with the ability to communicate pretty well. So I can find a way normally to connect in that's going to generate an insight or give somebody a new perspective or turn a light bulb on in their head where they go, I never thought of it like that. Or to connect concepts in a way that people can grasp it. So they think, oh, that's simple. Yeah, I get it. It feels commonsensical. And so I think that's probably the thing I like about myself most is I kind of call myself an artist of ideas. I'm terrible at drawing. And I wasn't allowed to do art at school because I'm that bad at drawing, and I would have brought the grade average down. But I think I'm good at painting pictures in people's heads.
Well, I must say, I thought you did an excellent job drawing on the screen before we started recording. So,
well, I mean, stick men is kind of my limit.
Just on screen in circles, we can handle that. Well, that's beautiful. And the reason why I know it is a challenging question. And I was really, I've been thinking about doing this podcast for a really long time, literally probably 10 years. And it's finally coming to the surface here. And one thing that was just really clear, when you just intuitively just know things. And I knew that I wanted to start it off in a way that encouraged people to focus on the good parts of themselves. And if this podcast were to have one impact, it would be to inspire the readers to think of themselves more favorably. And so anyone who's listening to this right now, I just want you to just think just for a moment. You don't even need to answer it, but just consider, what is my favorite thing about myself?
We live in this society, which is the I'm not enoughness. And so many people struggle with not feeling enough, whether it's in their personal life, their relationships, their work life, is that I'm not enough. And so actually, what is my favorite thing about myself? It's such a great way to get out of that mindset from I'm not enough to actually, I love this about me. It struck a frequency with me that I really liked. Thank you.
Yeah, you're so welcome. And it's cool. And I'm glad it struck a frequency. And I think it's also, even if you can't answer it, it just shows you something about yourself that's really challenging for me, or I feel shame come up, or I feel guilt come up, or, oh, who am I to think that, there's something favorable about myself? And what is very healthy, and I think something that's definitely taken me a long time to learn at a deep level, at an experiential level, that it's actually a sign of really good health and really good relationship with oneself to be able to say, this is my favorite thing about myself. And I think it's very reflective of the relationship you have with yourself, because I certainly know that I can, tell you what my favorite thing is about my mom or about my boyfriend or about my friends. And so why not? Why not take that liberty and have that with yourself?
Absolutely. You've got to have self-compassion to be able to help others.
And self-compassion and self-congratulation too, which is actually a perfect segue into what is my favorite thing about you. And this is one of my favorite. I love hearing what everyone's favorite part is about themselves. And I love sharing just like what comes up naturally. What was it about Jimmy that I really was called to bring him onto the show? And it's twofold. So number one is your communication skills, just straight up skills. I was like, wow, this guy is excellent at what he does. And radical discernment is definitely about having higher standards. And it's also about having those standards be very heart-based. And I found your communication skills to be very generous and also very succinct in a way that, because I also have neurodivergent qualities. I'm not diagnosed, but I definitely have the qualities. And I just noticed that when talking to you, it just felt so clear. And you would finish a sentence and do that. You would just stop and look. Or you would ask a question and stop and look. And I was just like, wow. And it actually taught me a lot. And I always get that comment, you're good at communication. But I got off of our call thinking, wow, I actually feel like I learned something about effective communication in that call.
Well, I'm grateful for that. Thank you.
For sure. And we'll dig into that a little bit more. But there's another favorite thing that I have about you here is how you're a high performing corporate leadership guy, very businessy, very formal, but yet you also really clearly prioritize coming from the heart. And that was one of the subjects that I felt like we both really kind of landed in our chairs, and we're like, oh, okay, cool. This is somebody that I can go deep with and explore something that's a little bit more meaningful than a superficial.
I fully agree. It keeps going back to one of the things we teach and share, which is to connect with the person, not the position. Whenever we go to a party or whenever we go to a conference or whenever we meet somebody, leave the what do you do for another day, or who are you and what are you passionate about, or what's your favorite thing about yourself. You learn so much more about a person when you focus on the person than the job they do. But we seem obsessed in our world with what do you do and who do you work with, what's your program or blah. It's something I'm conscious of, is trying to connect with a person first, because the energy is entirely different and you create much deeper relationships, and triggering that with vulnerability loops of being a little bit more open and vulnerable, which then hopefully the other person will respond and react and reciprocate. We want to create that because it creates this deepening of the relationship.
I love how this feels to me like a solid evolution of what I would say is standard leadership. Because when you think leadership, you think the guy or the girl standing up there with the confident stance and she's directing and telling. But what I'm hearing from you is almost got a bit of a flip side of that, where it's leading with vulnerability. And of course, it's as long as it's authentic and sincere. And that's a way to lead by example and show people they can be themselves around you.
100%. If you're in the middle of a battle, sitting down and going, so what does everybody think, isn't going to be a great way to lead in that moment.
Right.
Whereas if you're in a corporate planning session, for example, what does everybody think is really appropriate? And if you were to say, do this and do that, then you become more dictatorial. So I think that the key skill in leadership is knowing where you are and what moment you're in. And you don't have to be leading in a business environment. You could be leading a church choir, you could be leading a sports team, but knowing what moment you're in and using the right toolbox or right skill set to lead the best you can in that environment. Saying that, what I found is that human leaders are leading humans. So keep coming across as a human and do that in a way that allows people to connect with you and talk more effectively, so you can lead effectively when you need to scream and shout, be in a battle.
It feels like such an interesting balance. I know even right now I have a very small team, and I often find a big challenge with, I want to be a leader and I want them to feel that I'm a good leader and that they're on a good team and that I'm, providing them with the guidance that they need. And then I also find myself, and I'm wondering, I always wonder, I'm like, is this because I'm a yogi? Is this because I'm a woman? Is this, because I was sick for 8 years and isolated and I forgot how to, like all of these things after I ran my studio? Because I don't recall having those issues when I was running my studio. I felt very natural as a leader, and I still do, but I find myself doubting myself quite frequently. And what I'm picking up from what you're saying is to focus almost more on the connection than necessarily on like the label of leadership.
Yeah, I mean, for where we take our stuff is you've got to build trust. Trust and connection are key. And people look at, let's use that military example again. People look at military leaders and they, oh, you just scream and shout all the time. Well, the reason that we can do that is because the people who are working with us trust us. And so when we say go that way, it's because they know, okay, the boss has thought about the options, considered the options, he's followed a process, he's got a plan, and I'm being sent this way for a reason. And I'll do the best I can to deliver for him or her. If you don't have trust as a leader, nobody's going to follow you on the battlefield. If you don't have trust as a leader, nobody's going to follow you in the boardroom. So actually your job as the leader to be really effective is to build trust and connection so they can do their best work. You should hire smart people. You should hire people who can, who have the potential to do great things, and then spend your time enabling them. But they're never going to be enabled unless they trust you and you're connected with them. And perhaps the reason why you're doubting yourself now is because you know more than you knew back then, and so your awareness is greater. I can't remember this, that stupid people think they're really smart, and the really smart people think they're stupid because they've learned more to know that there's so much more to learn. And you probably thought you were great back then, but you know so much more now that you see that there's more to know.
And it's fascinating too how it does tie into like the trust, the connection, and the theme that we were talking about with self-leadership. And it just reminds me, and it like I've got kind of like all these different threads going off in my brain right now about creating trust with yourself. And I'm wondering if you can speak to that a little bit.
How do you trust yourself? One of the biggest lessons I personally learned was I was that corporate robot. I was the perfectionist, had imposter syndrome, so that drove me to know everything, be everywhere, deliver everything, be super organized, and constantly be worried that I was going to get caught out, or somebody was going to find out, or I'd drop the ball, or I'd make a mistake, and everybody would go, why on earth did he get this job? That was my biggest fear. And I didn't trust myself. And I guess over the last 8-9 years since I've been doing my own thing and built teams around me and delivered into clients, is that people don't connect with me because I had this amazing corporate career or because I was an army officer. They connect with me because I'm Jimmy. And my authenticity is one of the things that people kind of notice, is that I am just me. And yes, I've done some things, and yes, I know some stuff. But at the end of the day, I'm going to try and connect with you as a person and be really authentic and vulnerable in that. And I share many of my failures and I share many of my flaws. And I think that's built trust in me that being me is okay. It's okay to be me in my own skin, because people value that versus me trying to pretend to be perfect all the time, which means I don't trust myself because I'm worrying about not being perfect. But people also don't trust you because it doesn't connect with people. There's almost a vibrational frequency that's not quite set right. And people will subconsciously feel, something's off here. I can't really trust this guy. If you can focus more on being just you, the right people will connect with that. The wrong people will move away, and that's fine.
What is a marker that you can say, okay, I feel like I'm really being myself in this situation? I think it's a felt experience, but I'm wondering from your perspective, what's a good indication for the listeners?
And I can certainly tell sort of signs and symptoms that I would look for is somebody being authentic or not. Somebody who makes mistakes and laugh at themselves, or can be humorous at least about themselves, not take it too seriously or be crushed by it. They're probably being quite authentic. Somebody who's able to share stories of their failures or their mistakes or their past or their rock bottoms in an open environment that's attached it to the lesson that's been learned about it, or has attached the wisdom and experience that's come from it to the benefit of others, I think is relatively authentic. And somebody who can meet somebody else where they're at. If you're talking with a CEO or if you're talking with a janitor, I think a truly authentic person treats them both with respect and the respect that they deserve, and also can communicate with them in a way that's going to be meaningful for them. If I went and spoke to a janitor using corporate strategy terms, I wouldn't be connecting with them effectively. It wouldn't be authentic. Right. It would be me showboating or whatever you want to call it. Equally, if I go and talk to a CEO as though I talk to a janitor or a gardener or a vocational role, I'm not going to connect authentically with them, and that doesn't really work either. So I think that's probably what I would be looking for. Can I laugh at myself or make a fool of myself and be okay with it? Can I tell stories and share the wisdom and experience I gained? And can I connect with people authentically through conversations?
I love that. Thank you. Just thinking of I saw on your website the application to be on your podcast, and it said, we're looking for leaders. And this is a term that I was actually not familiar with, and maybe I understood it the wrong way, but it said from 7 to 12 figures. And I was like, is that a trillion? I didn't add the zeros, but it just made me realize, I'm like, wow, this man is working with some very high-performing individuals. And I'm curious, in that world of 12 figures, whatever that does mean, I'm so curious about the measures of success and how many people are focused on what you would consider to be maybe heart-centered success metrics.
It's almost like you're reading my mind on some of these questions. The measure of success is such a fascinating coaching topic, and let me kind of paint two extremes. Yeah. The first one is the measure of success is the size of your bank account or the number of people that work for you. And so people spend their entire careers looking for promotions, trying to get bigger jobs, trying to become more influential, and trying to make more of a difference. People have different motivators, but it's like, how can I get the biggest job possible for whatever reason I've got? And that's just one of the levers of life, or the pillars of life that we have, is professional success. And great. And society right now, I think, uses that as the Darwinian natural selection, survival of the richest, not survival of the fittest, is kind of the aspiration. So we're all trying to fill our bank accounts as full as we can, because money is the currency of success. And then at the other end of the scale, you've got one of my good friends, Juicy, who runs a dive resort in Utila and in Honduras. And he used to be in construction. He was pretty successful in construction. And he was like, I want a completely different life. I want to be diving 4 times a day. I want to live in a house I made myself. I want to grow my orchids. I want to be surrounded by the ocean. I want to be meeting cool people and helping them. So his measure of success is this life that he's designed on an island in the Caribbean, which is completely different. And so when you think about your measure of success and how you measure it, or how your listeners are measuring it, are you measuring the things that are really important to you, or are you chasing the measure of success that everybody else has, which is the rat race? And oftentimes, if you could earn a little bit less, but go to your kids' choir recital or the school play or the sports day, or be there to take your wife out for dinner because you've actually got the energy at the end of the day, or to be able to sit down and go, maybe I won't go to work today because I really want to work on this jigsaw puzzle or this piece of art I've got as a passion that I want to explore, or go swimming or diving today because the sun's out. Is that more successful than somebody who's just chasing the corporate dream? And there's no right answers here. The right answer is the one, or I should say, there's no one right answer. The right answer is the one that's right for you. And I think what we don't do is we don't take the time to really think about, what's my measure of success? How will I measure my own success? And am I on track for that or not?
So when it comes to standards in leadership, what would you say among the people who you relate and aspire to? Someone who has their definition of success matches your definition of success. What would you say is I use the term governing standard, and I don't mean it in terms of but what is the predominant standard in terms of making decisions that you find with those people who are of that nature that you are aspiring to, and you find that they have a really balanced version of success?
Yeah, I've spent a lot of time thinking about this for my own life. I'm moving away from being a corporate burnout to trying to create a life by design now. And the way I aspire to live, and the people I look to, for example, are people who they've got enough money in the bank as a hygiene factor. They don't worry about money. And you have to take it almost like a sort of Maslow's hierarchy. You need to take money off the table as an issue.
Absolutely.
But they're not in the pursuit of hundreds of millions of dollars. They've got enough, whatever enough is for you. But actually their key measure of success is freedom and latitude. And so, have I got the freedom to not work today, or to not have to deal with that client, or to have to not sell, day in, day out, to be able to go where I want to go, when I want to go, to do what I want to do, when I want to do it. Freedom and latitude for me is far more important than money. Once you've got enough, whatever your enough is. And that's where I've spent the last 5 or 6 years in Mexico. I've really focused on freedom and being able to say, sure, let's go camping this weekend. Not, I'm too exhausted and I've got to write some board papers. Not getting myself into those situations that take away from my freedom. And I remember a colleague a couple of years ago, I said this beautiful statement, which was, when you say yes to this, what are you saying no to? When you're looking at do I take on that extra client, or do I try and get that extra money, or do I try and build my bank account a bit more? What are you saying no to? Are you saying no to date nights, weekends, camping trips, diving trips? And are they the things that are your definition of success? Because if so, that money will make you less successful.
What would you say are the standards that you hold most dear when it comes to your professional life, as someone especially who has made this massive change?
There's probably 3. The first one is, I like to do business with people I like to do business with. And I've been, I guess, blessed in many ways that I'm now in a position to be able to sort of choose, to be able to work with the people I like, versus having to just take work to pay the bills, to get to that point of financial hygiene factor being met. Now I really try and focus on working with the people I know I can help, I want to help, and value my help. The second one is an absolute rigor on delivery. And that's probably counterintuitive in terms of my own vision of success of freedom. But one of the things we pride ourselves on in the business is we deliver. If I say I'll get something to you, I will get it to you. If I say I'll make this change, I will move heaven and earth to make that change. And we've lost money as a business by making sure we delivered for the client. We've thrown in extra workshops or added extra workbooks or been turned up and done whole new initiatives to make sure that we got the goal that they were looking for. Because it's important, right? You're putting this trust and investment into my business. We've got to deliver for you. And then I think the other sort of standard that I really go for is humanity and a bit cheeky. One of our values is 5% cheeky. We're not flippant or stupid, but we're a little bit cheeky. So we try and bring a little bit of humor. We try and make it a little bit fun, because honestly, if we're boring all day, it's not a great job. We've got to bring some humor and smiles to the people we work with. And often people say, actually hanging out with you guys is more about just switching off and taking some time to think for me, versus being in the hamster wheel. And we have some fun doing it.
Absolutely. I love that. It reminds me of so many of the, I would say, high net worth, and I don't know the exact terminology, but I know ultra high net worth individuals. Some of them, I always get a kick out of it, because whether it's in a professional or personal capacity, and I'll watch, their team, and they're like, da, da, da. And then there's the guy or gal up at the top, and they're like flip-flops and their shades, and they're kind of chilling. So I love that cheekiness factor, because it's almost like, certainly the level of success that I aspire to, I don't want to say it puts you past that need to be so rigid and formal, but I mean, the casual nature, the humor is just, that's, I actually just did a little post it was probably last week. And I said, I do think, having interviewed so many entrepreneurs and worked with so many people we have a similar focus, like me with the mindfulness, and they're like coming in and they're like, just so stressed out. And I'm like, I think as soon as you can get them to laugh a little bit, then I feel, for me, like, then you really feel like you're making some progress, and, they're going to leave the session just feeling like a little bit lighter. So yeah, I love that.
So again, it's connecting with the human, right? Versus the position. People are like, I'm the managing director, or I'm the sales director, I'm the whatever it is. and that's who I am. And then, no, you're Fred, and you like shellfish, and you're passionate fisherman on the weekend, or whatever it is that you are. Like, let's talk about that. And oh my God, I bet you look great in a wetsuit. It's just a little bit cheeky, but it just connects.
Absolutely. Self-leadership. There's a little bit of a background to that. And I just woke up, for everyone listening, we were going to go in one direction with this podcast. And I woke up this morning thinking, self-leadership. I feel like that's a really beautiful concept. And the inspiration behind it was actually a woman that I was listening to her podcast. It was a number of years ago, so I actually don't remember her name, but she was talking about one of the courses that she was teaching, and it was a course on how to coach yourself. And she's like, it was so far above and beyond more popular than all of the other courses that she had available on her website. And that's what actually inspired. It's like coaching yourself. And that's why I wanted to focus on leading yourself with a renowned leadership expert. And I'm just curious, I mean, we've definitely touched on it. And I'm just wondering, what else do you think is really relevant when it comes to, because I mean, obviously you're a very self-driven and motivated individual. And when you see other people, and I'm specifically thinking around things like motivation, which may not be a huge issue with the clients that you're dealing with, but it's definitely an issue with my clients, is focus, organization, things like that. Like, can you speak to that a little bit, Jimmy, about the standards around self-leadership in that way?
It's fascinating. One of the things we did in our business in the last 12 months was we really specialized. Before, we'd been leadership consultants, experts, whatever you want to call it, for leaders in general. So whether it was that person who'd just been promoted into a leadership role, or whether they were ready to go to the executive, and everything in between. And one of the things that we really focused in when we had some space to really look at where we add the most value is we really are excellent in that manager to leader transition. So this is somebody who's managing a team of managers. And we call them the meat and the sandwich. They're stuck between the executive expectations and I've got to run a team of people who have needs of me, and there's probably some operational delivery imperative that I've got to get stuff done as well. And that's really overloading. And so when we come to self-leadership for these people, we're pointing out that they probably are very smart. They're highly motivated. They're excellent executors. You've got to where you are because you were awesome at delivery. And the challenge for you now is to stop doing that. All those things that have got you rewarded, that's not going to get you where you want to go, which is stopping this feeling of being burned out, is exhaustion, is overwhelm, is feeling like everything's coming at you all the time and you're drowning in your workload. And 90% of that is down to the choices that you make on a daily basis. And when we talk about people burning out, people actually, and it's hard to hear, people choose to burn out through the series of choices that they make that gets them there. They choose to work late. They choose to work weekends. They choose to not take any vacation. They choose not to delegate. They choose to try and be involved in every meeting. And there are some environmental conditions, obviously, which is why it's like 95% is down to the individual and 5 to 10% is down to the environment. But realistically, self-leadership at the level we work with is doing the simple things that we recommend that aren't necessarily easy. And the leadership that's required there is letting go of the validation and the celebration for, wow, Jen, you delivered this again. That's awesome. To, wow, Jen, your team is delivering some great stuff. And showcasing those around you and being comfortable in the fact that you've created the environment that's allowed those people to deliver for you or with you or around you. I think that's a really big self-leadership challenge, is letting go of the accolades when you move into those more senior roles. If you keep chasing them, essentially what you're doing is you're still executing. And your job as a leader is about setting vision and direction and focusing on impact and decision-making, and opportunities and outputs. It's not about doing the doing. How it gets done is the important part. And what level of leadership are you at, and how does your self-leadership vary? For us, it's very much in that space. It's that manager to leader transition, letting go of the old things so there's space for the new things to come in, and being okay with that. The other piece is, as a leader at that level, we're probably talking people who are 15 to 20 years into their careers by now. what we see is when you're quite young in your career, doesn't have to be in terms of age, but relatively junior in your career, there's lots of professional development going on. And when you get to the executive, there's almost zero professional development going on, because you're meant to know by now, right? And so one of the self-leadership things we say is it's time to go back to school. When you transition from manager to leader, you've got to go back to school. You need to create a new mindset, a new skill set, and a new tool set. And that's going to require some education and some thinking and creating time for you to reflect and consider and judge yourself and how you can do better. Because if you keep doing what you've always done, you'll keep getting the same outcomes. We've got to do some shifts. And so the self-leadership is that grit and commitment to, okay, I'm prepared to let go of some of these things to give me some time to move into the next thing.
So given your extensive experience, I would say both in military and in corporate, what would you say to a scrappy up and coming entrepreneur who maybe doesn't have a team yet, but they envision that for themselves in the future? What about that kind of self-leadership?
Yeah, great question. I would say go find yourself a networking group or a mentor, or surround yourself with the smartest people you can find who are just a little bit ahead of you, and learn and watch what they're doing. The self-leadership for you is you will become the product of the network that you have. So invest in your network as part of your own development and growth. On a day-to-day basis, in terms of leading yourself, one of the things we know from entrepreneurs is consistency always beats energy. And so, at the very basic level, have a routine, have a work week, have a rest time, have a schedule. It amazes me how many entrepreneurs don't use a calendar. They just kind of go at it, and there's no time for thinking, time for networking. Start time blocking your diary out so you're structured, because again, structure always beats energy. So the more you can be consistent, go every Monday is for this, and every Tuesday morning is for this, then you get into a routine. The other self-leadership tool that we find is really helpful is batching, doing the same things. Do your invoicing on one day, do your social media on one day, do your meetings on one day. So because one of the things we discovered from our burnout research is multitasking or task switching has a cognitive cost. So as an entrepreneur, you're probably highly energized, really motivated, super passionate, and you're going to throw yourself into everything, but you're going to be juggling 15 balls at the same time. Actually, we know that you can focus much more effectively and deliver much more value and productivity if you batch your tasks. So, every Friday afternoon is creativity afternoon. Then all that stuff is bubbling away during the week, knowing it's got an outlet, versus trying to do 16 things at once. And one more that probably just came up is as an entrepreneur, self-leadership, try to chase 2 rabbits, catch no rabbits. So as an entrepreneur, don't try and build 16 products or services at the same time. Don't try and launch your website, hire a team, get funding, 16 other things at the same time. Just do one thing a week or a quarter that is going to make a big difference, and choose a thing that's going to make the biggest difference for where you're at, then move on to the next one. And it's hard because as an entrepreneur, you kind of feel like you've got to be doing all the things at once, but put the majority of your energy into achieving one thing, because if you chase too many rabbits, you'll catch no rabbits.
I love that. I just actually heard that recently, and I was like, it was one of those major light bulb moments. What I was curious about, and this is, I feel like this is my yogi meditator talking to your corporate experience. And I'm wondering how much, specifically referring to your book about burnout, I'm wondering how many people experience burnout because they're in roles, businesses, or careers that is not aligned with them at a deeper level.
Never been asked that question before. Chapter 1 of the book is all about essentially trying to identify what are the things that if you change will create a high performance culture, and if you leave will almost guarantee that you end up in a burnout situation for you and possibly your team. And chapter 1 was entirely based on purpose, and we created this framework called the purpose pyramid. And the foundational level of the purpose pyramid is, what's my purpose? Why am I here? Because if you don't know why you're here, then the next layer is the role purpose. Then which is what's the purpose of my role, and then what's the purpose of my team, and then what's the purpose of our organization. And if we can't get the foundation stone right, why am I here? I don't even know. Most people haven't thought about it. They just, well, I just need to earn money, so I'll go and get a job. But how can you be really purposefully connected and push through the hard times that inevitably come with any job in the modern work environment? Whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're in a massive business, or whether you're a startup, or any, everybody has hard days. But if you don't know why you're here, how are you going to make a difference? How do you even measure your success? How do you measure what your idea of success is if you don't know why you're here and what you're meant to do? And we found that there's ways to help you get there. And we have frameworks and exercises in the book to help you discover your self-purpose or your purpose. But it's the foundation stone. And then when you've got that, you go and find a job that allows you to deliver on that. And when there's hard days, you remember why you're here. And when there's good days, you remember why you're here and how great it is that you're achieving that in your role. And then you go, well, we need clarity in my role of how that's making a difference to the team. And if I'm not making a difference, then I don't feel particularly spiritually aligned, or we get more burnout. And if our team is doing something that is going to help our organization, then that's good as well. And what we also find is millennials and Gen Z are very much looking for purpose-driven organizations. So we are doing something that's making a difference in the world. And so we've got these 4 layers: my self-purpose, my role purpose, my team purpose, my organizational purpose. Those bottom 2 layers are all about identity. It's all about who I am, why am I here, and what do I do? And that's really important for people to get aligned on. The top 2 layers, the team purpose and the organizational purpose, are all about impact. I am something good, and I need to feel like I'm doing something that's important. And so when you talk about, is burnout a spiritual or a lack of purpose? Absolutely. It's one of those 2 things. I'm not really clear who I am. I'm not really clear what I do. And so I'm just burning lots of energy trying to do something, either just to get paid the lowest level, or because it's my job. And the second, the upper part of it that causes burnout is I'm doing something that my job doesn't make a difference, and I don't feel like it's aligned with my values. And our business makes cancer sticks or poisons or something really bad, and I can't get aligned with that either. And that creates this massive cognitive friction that again pushes people towards burnout.
Yeah, it is. I'd love to see the rift that's being created right now between, I feel like there's this massive group of people and individuals who it is obviously the economy. We're in tough times right now. Politically, everything seems very unstable and stressful. And I feel like that is definitely necessitating people to be in roles and companies where they do simply need to have ends meet. And then what you spoke to with millennials and Gen Z really gravitating more towards purpose on an organizational level. When you're talking about leaders up at the top, do you think that leaders are really tuned in to how much having a purpose can mean to their team? Like, do they factor that into their leadership?
I think from the experience I've had, the majority of leaders think that a purpose is a poster on the wall. We need to get some great wording to make people feel good about what we're doing. And I think the challenge that a lot of organizations face is one of 2 things. First one is it's just meaningless words. It doesn't connect with me at all. And the second one is I don't know what I do, 9 to 5 or whatever you work, contributes to what they've said. And that, I think, is something that leaders, it's almost like the low-hanging fruit that we do in our purpose work, is having a conversation with every single member of your team and talking about how what you do makes a difference to what we do. And that is, but we implicitly assume everybody just knows, right? We're all going to get on board. And so leaders never communicate that enough. And it's a gap. And it's one of the things we really focus on is for our high performing teams program and for our leadership programs. It's getting very clear on the purpose pyramid, but also how do I communicate that effectively with everybody around me so I can be a better leader by getting everybody aligned behind me. And I think I shared this example with you when we had coffee. I worked with this pharmaceutical business and with a sales team, and we talked about what's the purpose of the team. Does everybody know? And they were like, oh, yeah, absolutely. I said, well, can you all write down the purpose of this team on Post-it notes? And let's compare our answers. And so judging this is a sales team. So we got answers to sell, to make profit, to keep our relationships with our customers so that our customers are happy, to move inventory, so we don't hold too much inventory, to come up with promotions that we can get better deals with. And all of these answers were right, but they weren't aligned. And so when it comes down to the decision-making process for where do we put our energy, whose bit's most important, how do we prioritize this, which products are we focusing on, if people aren't clear on the purpose of the team and how that looks for everybody, then you've got all these people, it's like they're almost in a rowing boat, everybody's rowing in the opposite direction from each other, and the boat's not going anywhere. And it's one of the biggest frictions to team and individual performance. And you as a leader, whether you're in a startup as an entrepreneur with 2 people, or whether you're running a 12-figure business, something like Walmart, you need to clarify purpose for everybody in your business so they know why they're there and what they're doing and how it makes a difference.
I'm tempted now to ask a little bit of a controversial question. I'll just ask it and we can always cut it if we need to. I'm just curious if in your experience, if you've ever encountered a situation with, say, someone like Walmart, for example, that felt out of alignment with your purpose and you chose not to take that work.
I've definitely turned down work with a few organizations, either because we've gone on a journey of discovery and I've found that they're either not coordinated, not aligned, the senior leadership team's not committed to the journey we're trying to go on. I guess I've been burned in earlier stages of my career where I thought everybody was on board. And so I went in guns blazing and tried to do the best work I could, and it fell over. And so now I'm very careful to assess the level of commitment and are you aligned with the purpose of what we're trying to do here? Equally, I've turned down work before I've even got involved because it's not a company I want to work with. And it goes back to that I like to work with.
Yeah.
And so there are, certain industries, certain organizations, certain people that I'll never work with because it doesn't line up for me. I couldn't feel good about doing that work. So there's no purpose to me doing it.
I love that. The standard of I don't feel good about doing that work. It always manages to come back to feeling, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you get one crack at this. You get 4,000 weeks. You get one go. So if you're slaving away as a hamster on a wheel in whatever job you're doing, whether you're in your own business or in somebody else's business, and you don't love it, you've chosen to be there. I fully agree with you. There are people who are just trying to put food on the table right now and they're desperate, but they're still choosing to stay in that job when there maybe are other options. And I think you've got to feel good about what you do or find the goodness, which I can add to that point as well. There's a fascinating piece of research with some nurses about, do I love what I do? And the research basically showed you've only got to identify 18% of your job that you love for it to be enough to boost your engagement and commitment and output. So if you're in a job where you're like, I don't love any of my job, I hate it, can you find 18%? And there's no statistical gain after 20%. So after that, it kind of doesn't make any more of a difference. If you've got below 18%, yeah, you'll probably be disengaged and unhappy. But essentially, could you find one day of the week that you really enjoy doing your job, or certain activities that you really enjoy that make you love your job for 18% of it? If that 18% is there, that's enough to keep you there, to keep you going, and you focus your energy and your time on making a difference in those 18% areas.
I mean, it speaks to a standard in itself right there, just what you're choosing to look at.
Everybody's job sucks at various points. So all of our jobs suck at some point. Even my job, I love my job, and there's still parts of it I don't like. So I just focus on the bits I love.
One more question for you, Jimmy. I'm curious, what was it when you, at that burnout moment, can you tell us what was the spark, what was the catalyst that made you say, I'm not doing this anymore?
So it was about a 2-year descent into burnout. I was on my 3rd executive leader in 18 months. So when you get a new boss, you always have to prove yourself and step up, or I did, because I was performance anxious. I'd had a situation where I'd been called into the exec team and told that there was an upcoming legislation change that was going to take $20 million off my bottom line. I needed to fix it, and I had 6 weeks to fix it. So go get it, because Jimmy was the one who delivered. So, make it happen. And at the time, I was flying 10 days out of 14 to China, Japan, the US, Europe, wherever, to visit our various different teams and clients around the world. Getting up at 4 a.m. to do 2 or 3 hours of board papers and reports, sending that back to New Zealand while I was in meetings all day. And while we were away, we'd be essentially changing cities every 1 to 2 days. So it would be a full day of meetings, go out to a hosted dinner, go to the airport or a train station and move on to the next city, check in at sort of 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the morning, get 2 or 3 hours sleep and up again at 4 to do the work. Obviously, all these hosted dinners, eating very nice, rich food, putting on weight, lots of drinking. When I came back to New Zealand, trying to kind of reconnect with my family, drinking more. And I just remember waking up one morning, sitting on the bed of the bed, with my can of Coke Zero in my hand, trying to get enough caffeine in to function, knowing I had to be at my desk for 7. And I just thought to myself, what am I doing? Like, no matter how hard I try, I'm not going to make enough of a difference. I'm trying to literally, turn oil tankers around with everybody else rowing in the opposite direction, and I cannot do this. And there's one of 3 outcomes. I'm either going to kill somebody, I'm going to kill myself, or both. And I was 25 kilos heavier than I am now, living on rushed food between meetings, never had a moment to stop. And I was just, I cannot doing this anymore. And it was that kind of desperate fatigue where I just thought, I don't even care anymore. If I've gone to the caring point, now I'm at the survival point. And thank God I had the presence of mind to pull the plug then. And it was still 3 months before I could get out of the organization. There's a 3-month notice period. So I still had 90 days to go before I could leave. And literally on the last day was delivering projects, right up to the line. But I was done. And it was the worst feeling in the world because I was the one that felt like I'd failed. And in ways I had, I'd made bad choices on the way through to overcommit myself and to be the guy who always delivered. I've learned a different lesson now, which is to only work on the things that I really want to work on and then deliver, not try and work on everything and solve everything at the same time. But yeah, it was a painful experience to go through all those years back. And, whilst I look on that pain, it's also been one of the greatest gifts I could have ever been given to be able to start this life. And, the chapter of Jimmy 3.0 it seems to be going pretty well. So I'm grateful for that experience and that gift that I was given. And I've tried to do the best I can with it now to stop other people having to experience that.
Yeah, it's so cool. And humility and the enthusiasm that you bring. It's really inspiring. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Do you have a book on communication that you would recommend to entrepreneurs who want to be more clear and succinct?
A book on communication? Probably not necessarily directly about communication, but about the way you come across.
For sure.
It's called The Culture Code, and it's very aligned with the stuff that we think and talk about. And he is all about how do you build and sustain a great team, essentially. But a lot of that is in the way you connect and communicate and build trust with the people around you. And I think that's a really beautiful book. It's probably one of my favorite books, actually, that I recommend. And then the other one that I really like is Stephen Covey's Trust and Inspire. Again, you can see the theme, but that's a beautiful book as well, all about it. And then I think there's one of that, and this isn't about communications either, but it was a dating book I read, and it's called Models by Mark Manson. And one of the things he talks about is the idea of polarization. So you either switch people onto you or you switch people off to you, and you do it quickly so you can not waste time and move on. And that's a great communication technique. And it goes back to that kind of authenticity thing. If you just be you, the right people will be attracted, the wrong people will be repelled, and you can get on with it without worrying about it. And it works really well for client management, for building your business, for hiring a team, for building a culture, for the way you communicate. And I really like that kind of concept.
He's brilliant, that man. He just managed to just find a vein and just follow it through. He's incredible. I'm curious where you would send the readers to learn more about you and purchase your books and see your offers.
Oh, thank you. Well, you can go to jimmyburroughes.com with a very random spelling of Burrows, so I'm sure it'll be in the notes below. On there, you can find our podcast, you can find our programs, our workshops, our blog. We spend a weekly blog, which is reasonably popular, with sort of simple, practical things you can do and follow. The book, Beat Burnout, is on Amazon.com or on all the Amazons. The second book, Beat the Multitasking Trap, is actually on the website to download for free. We wanted to give it away. So it's a relatively easy read. It's about 45 pages and it's got lots of pictures. So you can probably get through it in an hour and a half, 2 hours. And it's a case study, so that's available free on the website. And then I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. You can find me under Jimmy Burroughes. And I am open to and love to have conversations with people who are needing support in this space.
Thank you so much. I feel like you've brought such an interesting perspective to just this concept of self-leadership. Yeah, I really appreciate it, Jimmy. Thank you so much for your time.
You're most welcome. Thank you so much for the invitation. I really appreciate it.